me. Okay. I'm so excited. Welcome to Sunday Soul Sessions, the very first, the inaugural episode of Sunday Soul Sessions. I am so excited to be doing this. It's been something that has been on my mind. I've been asked to do it. I've been told you need to do it. And I did something similar to it when I used to do spoken word poetry, but it wasn't consistent. And of course, I haven't spit a piece in good Lord knows how long. But when I was thinking about a way that I really wanted to be able to build community, I wanted to be able to kind of discuss some of the things that are part of my message, part of the things that I know that I've been sent to be able to share with humanity. I thought, what better way than us to just be able to sit down and kind of have a conversation. So, welcome. My puppy is in here and she's walking around. So if you hear noise in the background, it's this little white fur ball here. So what is Sunday Soul Sessions? Sunday Soul Sessions, I kind of thought of it as a wrap up for some of the things that I present during the week. So if you're following Ashay Institute, our main platform is Instagram. We do also share on Facebook, but that's I'm very active on Instagram. And so we do Manifesting Minute, right, which is literally a recording, an audio recording video for manifesting affirmations for the week. So to start the week off, getting our thoughts right, helping us to really kind of zone in. It's 1 minute out of a day. The second thing we do is Winning Wednesdays. In Winning Wednesdays, I sit down and I really kind of write a really small perspective about something that we deal with as humans. Oftentimes that can inhibit us from being able to thrive. So my thing is, how are we thriving? We are entering into a space where I think we're starting to notice very much the difference between survival mode and what thriving looks like. And so a lot of us have operated in thriving, and we've got generations and history of surviving, which is all a blessing. And it is what got us right here. So amen and hallelujah. But there's greater, right? So that's something that I always talk about, is how can you thrive while surviving as we're moving into those different places. So Winning Wednesday really is about helping us to get into key spaces that can inhibit us, that can help us to grow, that can help us, look introspectively at our lives, at the conditions of our lives, at how we think, and how we share with others. And then there's 5 to Thrive. So I'm all about, it's one thing to talk about a concept, it's another thing to come up with ways to actually utilize that concept. I typically base it off of the 5 senses. So we can tap our 5 senses into something, then we're able to actually feel the full experience of it. Sometimes that it shifts a little bit, but it really is about giving key practical activities, whether you do 1 or you do all 5, at being able to thrive. There is something that's going to be called Finally Friday that I am going to introduce in the upcoming month or so. But when I got to Sunday Soul Sessions, I was like, okay, what are we doing? I really wanted just to have a space where we could communicate, where there is, this is what's going on. This is kind of what happened. And this is the lesson that I learned about this particular thing. And really share. I'm hoping that eventually with these videos, we'll get, some comments and we can start some discussions. I'm also hoping that I might do a couple lives and we go on and we do some chats. But I really wanted to give people a space to come. And I picked Sunday because it's typically my Sabbath. It's the day that nothing else happens. I shut down the world. And I'm able to really hone in on me. So I guess that's the next question. Who the heck am I right now? If you're following me on Instagram, which is probably where most of you will have known about Sunday Soul Sessions, or on Facebook, you probably either know me personally or you've gotten a kind of a feel for me. But my name is TT Gore. Tasha Gore, you will also hear. I am a licensed clinical therapist, and I absolutely love people. I love to watch people thrive. I love to watch people have those aha moments. I love to watch people dig and excavate and really get into the meat of who they are, not just generationally, not just within society or the many roles or the hats or the masks that we wear, but really who you are. And so, you know, I used to tell people I was counseling many years before I ever became a therapist. I'm also a teacher at heart. So I am really big on being able to translate kind of very broad concepts. Sometimes I say high level concepts, or even ethereal. So bringing some things down, concepts into real practical ways of seeing it, and helping you to take revelation and create that into application. You'll hear me say little coin phrases like revelation without application is just information. Shout out to E. Ashley. And you know, my girlfriend used to say that all the time, like you can have the revelation of it, but if you ain't did nothing with it, it's just information. And so that's important to me, is that we move revelation to an application piece. Let's see. I am a graduate of the University of Michigan. I am excited about that all the time. We joke about, you know, I think anybody will say, you know, my college was the best, or, you know, I belong to the best of this. And it's all perspective. And a lot of times it's even just kind of I don't want to say a joke, but like really just like in humor. There's value in all things, but I am very proud to be a Wolverine, go blue. I am a mother of 3 beautiful children who are growing, and not quite there yet. I am a wife. I have been with my husband going on 25 years. So we've been together. We've grown up together. We've been in this thing for a really long time. I am, let's see, a sister and an aunt, and I am a writer. I'm a published author, and former spoken word poet. You name it, I've kind of got all these different things that I've been blessed to live through and with and gain. And I truly enjoy tapping into the gifts and the talents that Spirit has given me. So one thing I will say up front is I am a spiritual person. So you're going to hear me say spirit. You're going to hear me talk about, you know, the ramifications of having a spiritual life, only because it really is the backbone for a lot of how I see. It's part of my belief systems. But I also understand that your belief systems, no matter whether it is a spiritual aspect or it comes from a different point of view or perspective, ultimately helps to make up the foundation. And so the foundation is the foundation. It doesn't matter how your foundation is made up in terms of terms of like even how you see spirit or you don't, or whether you take it from an agnostic point of view, all those things. It really is about how do you create a healthy foundation for you to move forward. Let's see, what else? I am also a proud soror of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. I am excited about that all the time. I say excited a lot. I realize that. But I do. I love my sorors. I love my sorority. I love being part of an organization that really stands for scholarship and service and final womanhood and sisterly love. Like, it's really something that resonates with me in terms of how I see my relationship with other women. So, and humanity at large. So I'm really, really proud to be part of that. I am, let's see, what else is there to know about me? I feel like there might be things that I miss. I'm an avid reader. I love to read. This is by far what's sitting behind me is a very small amount of the books that I have. This whole corner that's over on this side is full of books and boxes. It's 3 whole bookshelves in a different room. So I love. You guys, I'm gonna just let you know now. So the way my camera is set up, sometimes I look over to a certain way, not because I'm not looking at the camera, but the way that the screen sets itself up is that it makes it seem like I should look that way. So if I do, it just, y'all, we just keep rocking, right? So what can you expect with Sunday Soul Sessions? Sunday Soul Sessions, I really wanted to talk about a weekly topic. Typically, it will be connected to what is discussed in the Manifesting Minute and the Winning Wednesday and the 5 to Thrive, because I feel like that connection will carry through the theme. So I will have that conversation weekly. Also, let's see. I will always probably be drinking tea. I'm an avid tea drinker and coffee drinker. I love coffee cups and teacups, and I need help. But anyway, or some water. But I also wanted to, what am I reading? So I'll talk maybe about what I'm reading some Sundays, and see if other people want to join in. And if that's the case, and they're interested in reading along, then maybe we'll do, a separate video or something about some of the things that we learn, kind of like a virtual book club, maybe. But I'll share with that, because I think when you can sometimes get exposed to other things or reminded about books. Oh, I forgot about that book. I said I wanted to read it. It expands our point of view. Let's see what else. Any updating news, things of that sort, I will also share on these videos. So we're gonna get started. I gave myself 15 minutes to get through that introduction, and I did it in 14. I'm proud of myself. So this week, what am I reading? I kind of got, I don't want to say pushed back into, but was really like heavily reminded of a book that I had started reading. I hadn't finished. I got kind of to a part where I was like, oh, wow, that really resonated with me. And then I kind of ran with it, which sometimes happens for me. I'll get into a book and I'll read it and I'll get to, I guess, essentially the part that I need at that point in my life. And then I'll put the book down. And so now Spirit's like, okay, it's time to pick it back up. Right. So I am reading, this is an older version of it. But it's Marianne Williamson's A Return to Love, which is the reflection of principles in A Course in Miracles. I think this is really old. Like, she did this in 1992. 92, 93, somewhere like that. And I have several of her books. I follow her. I enjoy her teachings. And I think, I know that this book has come back to me as I am broadening my aspect, or my perspective, that's the word I want to use, broadening my perspective about the healing of humanity. And what do we have to do to kind of tap into healing this very broken world and ourselves, individually, our collective, so our individual community or tribe or families, and then at large. Because I have a saying, and I say it quite often when I do professional development, that, trauma is the seed or the fruit of the seeds that America sowed. I'm going to say that again. Trauma is the fruit of the seeds that America sowed. And so either we're going to heal together or we're going to die together. And I think there's this real understanding as we watch things move throughout the world, that there's this kind of mass healing that needs to happen. And so this book came back to my memory. And then there's another book. I picked this book up from, I want to say, the Goodwill. I was at Goodwill and I saw this book and it intrigued me. But it's called The Fourfold Way, Walking the Paths of the Warrior, Teacher, Healer, and Visionary. And it's by Angelis, Arian, PhD. And let me see if I can let you guys see what that looks like. It is also probably a very old book, but it was published in 1993. Wow. Both of these were published in 1993. That's cool. I just opened it up and I saw this prayer thing and I'm chuckling inside for really personal reasons. And I know she's watching this, so I'm just gonna say, yo, B, there's a whole poem about a raven. Okay. Anyway, inside joke. But there's interesting things in here. So I think what drew me to this was it not only gave like information and let's see, what's the word I want to use? Like different key things about that particular, but it gave you questions to think about. It gave you questions about that particular archetype. So like we're talking about the warrior archetype. What are their empowerment tools? What is their leadership skills? Shadow aspects of the warrior. Nature metaphors attributed to the direction of north, because north is the direction that is subscribed to the warrior archetype. But then it asks questions, and it's made to answer like one or two of them daily. So I thought that was a really cool way of being able to intentionally kind of do a book study with it. And so, yeah, I'm interested in diving in this. I think I started reading it at one point and I stopped, and I'm not quite sure what, probably life happened. But essentially, I want to pick it back up and do those. So those two books will be what I'm reading for the month of October. So the goal is to get through both of those for the month of October. I'm trying to do a practice where I read in the morning, first thing in the morning, during my morning routine. And then I'm also reading in the evening for a little bit before I retire to sleep. Let me tell you why reading is so important. For those of you who are like, I'm just not a book person. I don't like books. I can't do it. I'm a visual. I'm an auditory. Cool. Get a book on tape. Our expansion in terms of our mind really happens with language. syntax, definitions, meaning, all of those things that are part of language is how we make up life. So you can feel something, you can have a feeling or emotion until it is really voiced. And that voice doesn't mean necessarily audibly out of your mouth. It means really prescribed within your thought process. That's a language. That language provides context and meaning. It provides, it prescribes good or bad. Like, we do that with language. And so the more that we provide our minds, our souls, our bodies with an expansive way of seeing the world, the more we are able to have tools to navigate things that we encounter. Because there's always going to be something that you encounter that you may have never encountered before. Of course, there's things that says there's nothing new under the sun. This is true, but it might be new to you. So without this expansion and this ability to really speak about, and look for a solution, that happens in language. It happens in language, and it happens with the narrative. So I talk a lot about narrative. One of the modalities that I love to use a lot in therapy is narrative therapy, because it really is essentially what we think, how we hear, how we prescribe meaning to a situation that creates that situation. So if I go through something and my narrative that I've prescribed to it, so the story that I write about this situation is, that's not so bad. I mean, it could have been worse. I have lived through worse. It's all right. That then allows for certain emotions to attach to it, right? Even if, let's say, originally I was like, oh, a little tense about it. If the process, when I am done processing it and writing the story about it, allows for me to take that tension and create a story that allows for an emotional relationship where I'm comfortable, or I don't feel scared, or I don't feel, angry. I'm not in this flight or fight or freeze mode. Then what happens is that narrative has created, it's created the entire experience, right? And so I tell people all the time, part of the reason we struggle is because we don't have words for things. We don't know how to communicate where we are in a way outside of what we've already been taught, understood, experienced. So we only have this language that we've had all our lives, or we've learned again and again, because that language is used again and again. And because we don't have a broader viewpoint, because we haven't experienced, read, brought in more language to be able to write the story that we're processing, we struggle. Read a book. Read a book. Please read a book. Read articles. And then essentially process those things. Because, again, everything you read may not fit you. It may not go along with your belief system. But it does expand your ability to have discussions and to be able to explain and understand where you are and why you're there and what you want to do about that. So that's what I'm reading this month. And I think that's a good segue into this week's topic. So this week, if you read Winning Wednesdays, or not read, yeah, if you read Winning Wednesdays, or you did any of the 5 to Thrives, we were really focusing on the difference between the illusion, the curtain that fear puts up, versus pulling back the curtain and seeing essentially what's really there. Okay, that sounds great, right? But what does that mean? Like, what does that really mean? So what's the illusion? This also kind of comes back to, and yes, see, look, y'all, I'm such a University of Michigan person. But it's the thing about illusion is this. It's created from kind of this, I call it the super bodyguard space of fear, right? I have been hurt. I've experienced something that was uncomfortable. It was negative. It was painful. It was no bueno, right? It's not good. I never want to experience that again. Or I want to do whatever is possible not to experience that again. The other thing is, most illusions were birthed at a time when we don't even remember them being birthed, which means somebody's little girl, little boy had an experience. And that experience, because their language was so small, it was so finite at this time, the processing of that space became very, very small, this very tiny little box. And as we grew, the box didn't grow. It wasn't that we processed it differently. It wasn't that we processed it expansively. It's that we allowed for that box to stay the same. We allowed the emotions. We allowed for the memory to become a shadow, to become something bigger than life. So I explain it like this. If you ever have, like, let's say you're standing on the sidewalk in the summertime and the sun is shining on you. If you look back, your shadow is stretched way far, like it's out because it's bigger, right? But you are probably, 1/4 of that size of that shadow, depending on where the sun is. And so it's interesting because that shadow will become what you see. It will become how big you think this thing is. That's the illusion. That's the illusion. And so fear will say to you things like, you can't, you shouldn't. Should is a real big word. You haven't. You should have by now. Should is a really big word. You hear should, you should start looking for fear. If you hear should, go look for the fear, because there's some fear there. You hear things like, I don't, right? I can't, I cannot. There's a lot of nots, shoulds. This illusion that gets created is based around a language that tells you how finite you are and why that small box is all that you really can do. Because that processing that happened at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 16 begin to, it was your foundation. It's what you see. It's how you see it. It's what you use as a guide for how you're going to live this thing, right? So if my experience says men are not good people, I had a bad relationship with my dad. Therefore, my 3, 4, 5, 6, 10-year-old self is like, small box, men are untrustworthy, or men aren't around. Men are going to leave you, okay? Or I then get into a relationship at 14, 15, 16 years old, and I have a relationship with another 14, 15, 16-year-old person. And they do what 14, 15, 16-year-olds know to do, and my heart gets broken. But that heartbreak and how I process it, this doesn't work, and relationships don't work, like these little small boxes from very small perspectives were processed at times when you didn't have a language. You didn't have a bigger, expansive point of view to be able to say this is one inside of a spectrum, or one inside of many experiences, or we're too young, or this is only a part of a whole, right? So because we don't have those things, this illusion just kind of, and it sometimes it's so interesting because we've lived with the illusion for so long. We think we have 20/20 vision. We think we see clearly. I know. I mean, I got experience that backs that up. Right? Every dude I've dealt with is like this. Or every woman I deal with, she's catty. Like she got an attitude problem. Or that space has grown and it snowballs, and we think we're seeing the world, perfectly fine. Everything's great. I'm good. That illusion keeps us in survival mode. We are consistently in survival mode because we're consistently on guard, waiting for what this illusion has said is gonna happen or could happen. And so therefore you should, right? And so as we begin to think about thriving, as we begin to think about how do I want to live my life fully? You talk about purpose. So let's just talk about purpose for 2 seconds. I have so many people that come to me that tell me, I don't know why I'm here. I don't know my purpose. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. Give me 2 seconds. Mamita. Mommy, sit down. Go sit down. Sit down. Sit. Thank you. She's like, can I have a treat? Can I have a treat, Mommy? There you go. Sorry, I'm doggy. I'm being a doggy mommy today. I hear that on a continuous basis. I think most people struggle with that question of why am I here? What is my purpose? Because we get a veil kind of put over our eyes at an early age that says limitations. It sets limitations. It creates kind of this stifling box that we all live in. And so when I start challenging people, okay, so why are you here? Like, what are you here for? Is it to work, sleep, eat, have sex, have a family? What? Why are you just here to fulfill Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the lowest level? Are you here? Or you think you're supposed to go to level 3? Like, what? Why? What is your why? Because see, until we tap into our why, all the rest of this is just, it's we're just doing it. Like, it's not even, it's autopilot. I call it autopilot work. There's no intentionality behind it. And it's interesting too, because without a why, we can come up with loads of activities that keep us busy, that keep us running, that keep us going, that keep us constantly feeling like, oh, I got so much to do. I gotta go. That was me. I know. Your to-do list is like exhaustive. And then you're like, man, I never have any free time. Oh, I never have the time to enjoy life the way I want to. It's because you're wandering aimlessly without a direction. You don't know what tasks to intentionally pick to satisfy your why. And then you become bitter and angry because it's like, well, I'm doing all this work and I don't have anything to show for it. angry because this cannot be life, but I also don't know how to dig in and get anything different. So there's something that I say to people all the time, and I'm going to say it here because I'm hearing it repeatedly. I hear, especially moms are really good at this, so I'm speaking this out, no throwing things at me. But I hear all the time, my family is my why. I do this for my family. I do this because my kids, my spouse, my significant other, that's my why. If your why is external, meaning other people, other things, I promise you, at some point it's going to come crashing down around you. And that why that you've built your tower on, you've built your kingdom on, will find its foundation imbalanced with lots of cracks, and it will come falling down. Kids are going to leave you. They are designed to grow up. Their human bodies, their maturity levels are designed to advance, to mature, to get older. Okay? And so if we do not build our foundation, and it's not that your spouse is going to leave, but who we are changes, right? We're going to change over time. We're going to change with age. We're going to change with maturity. What I liked at 20 is damn sure not what I like at 40. Thank you, Jesus. Kids grow up. People leave here. And so if your why, let's say your spouse is your why. My family is my why. Your spouse passes away. Not because they didn't love you, not because they cheated, because life happened and your spouse passes away. Your children grow up and move out and get lives of their own. What are you here for? What is your why? Why does that matter? Because as you start talking about thriving and pulling back this curtain, you start finding that these limiting conversations that you have, this limited point of view, this perspective, this illusion that you've kind of bought into has created a very false sense of self, a very false space for you to, you got a potty. I knew she was going to do it, y'all. I knew it. I felt it. Okay, mama. A very false, okay. Sit down. Okay. I knew it. All right, pause for a second. Back. Okay. So I was talking about it creates a false sense of self. So we start catering to this self that isn't real and doesn't really I don't want to say it doesn't exist, because it does, but it's not an authentic self. So it's not born out of what you're put here for, what your skills and talents are. It's born around something that can be taken away. Here's the one thing that is very true. One of the things that is very I'm very conscious of, especially as life has happened, is that I'm going to be with me until I leave here. No one else is guaranteed to be with me until I leave here but me. That's it. So that relationship with who I am and how I became who I am and who I want to be and how I design that person and how I craft that lifestyle and how I excavate the divine talents and gifts that were given to me. My fingerprints matter because they were only given to me. So how I put my fingerprints on what I offer the world, what I give to humanity, cannot be externally motivated. It cannot rest on a foundation of a why that is external of myself. So when we begin to talk about thriving, we're pulling back this curtain of illusion. What we then begin to talk about is how far I've come. Whew, Jesus. Like, really, how far? Because the other thing that we do in this kind of external, very externally motivated why, is that it's never good enough. Because unless I get validation from my husband, unless I get validation from my children, or this degree, or work, or whatever my why is, then I'm never good enough. I never reach that good enough space. And so we have to start understanding that my worth, who I am, why I'm here, what I have to offer is not by any means necessary connected to, founded on, or related to anybody's acceptance of who I am. It's just not. And so, when you pull that, like, I keep talking about pulling back the curtain, because I literally just see this curtain like pulling back, and you're like, oh, that's not what because I didn't see it like that. I thought, so that's where I was getting this viewpoint from. And then you're able to really start seeing how much you've achieved, how much you've done, how much you've really healed, how much inside of you, who you are intrinsically, has been able to accomplish. And then so I then say to people, so what happens if you did that on purpose? You've been doing it for lots of reasons. Most of the time to validate, most of the time to fit in. You know, we have one of the greatest fears I talk all the time about is the fear of lack and the fear of rejection. So we do a lot not to be able to have to deal with those things, right? So what happens when you start essentially beginning to really realize who you are, what you survived, how you've survived it, how you've lived this thus far, right? And then taking those things and starting to create this positive narrative that can create a foundation, right? It can start helping you to dig through, kind of sift through all the things you've experienced, to start finding key points about, why am I here? And so this week, I'm encouraging people to really be honest. And I need to say this because it was said to me several times this week. And so I feel like I need to share it. Honesty does not have to be cruel. We have, humans have a really difficult time with being kind to themselves. I don't know if that is conditioning from religion. I don't know if it's conditioning from the trauma that we've experienced as humans. I don't know if it's the conditioning that has, somehow embedded itself into our epigenetics. But we have a really difficult time being kind to ourselves, while being honest. I can say, Tosh, girl, you did not need that last piece of cake. Without that turning into, oh my God, I always fail. I eat wrong consistently. I can't ever stay disciplined. My self-discipline is lacking. I'm like, without spiraling into this thing, honesty does not have to be cruel. If you are cruel to yourself in your thoughts, in this negative self-talk pattern that we get caught up in, I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to say, let's do some awareness around it, because a lot of people don't realize it. And then the second thing I'm going to say is, there's some work that needs to be done there. Like, we do not have to be cruel to ourselves. To be honest, brutally honest does not mean cruelly honest. It means taking the facts that you have and utilizing them. Seeing them for what they are, not tying them to your emotions, not tying them to what you consider failures, not tying them to I wish I shoulda, coulda, woulda. not tying them to all the things that you think you did wrong, but really honestly utilizing them as a fact. So this is the fact. I like to shop. That's a fact, right? That fact doesn't have to go, oh, I spend too much money. And do you spend too much money? Yes. Does it have to be a negative thing? Maybe I should have, should I have, right? Let me say that differently. Was there another way that I could have? That's not it. That's not the word. Give me the word, Spirit. Was there a better way to invest what I spent, right? How I financially am managing my coins, whatever that looks like, right? Was there a better way that I could have done that? That fact doesn't mean that I have to then go on this tangent of, I can't. I just, oh my God, I have a problem. I have a problem with this, right? And again, this isn't to say that we don't get stuck in negative things. What it's to say is that when we begin to be honest with ourselves, that we can do so with grace, we can do so with mercy, at the same time of having discipline and standards. Those two do not have to be mutually exclusive. It doesn't mean because I'm offering myself grace and mercy that somehow that means that I don't have any discipline. It means that I also don't feel like I have to be a whipping boy for all the things that I see wrong with myself. Because anything that is founded on fear is either going to become toxic and poisonous, or it's going to create death. And it's going to create death, which means that foundation is going to fall down. So I'm going to wrap up. This week was really about tapping into who we are intrinsically, who we are, why, and really understanding where there are illusions that have been created in our lives, because you can't thrive in quicksand. You can't thrive in quicksand. So this week, I'm hoping that those lessons start finding ways to stay in your thought pattern, stay in kind of how you're seeing the world, even if it's just a whisper of, when did I start processing this like that? Especially if it's something negative. Like if you're feeling something negative, or, I'm going to say this too. If you're prescribing something positive, something like this is good, I also want you to question, how did you come about this being good? Because sometimes we prescribe good to something, or, a positive outcome to something because we were taught that this was good, right? Without realizing that really it's a trap. It's a trap, y'all. It's a trap, right? So we have to really start sifting through, why do we think like we think? What's behind it? What's behind the veil? All right. I'm going to be back next Sunday. I hope that you'll be back next Sunday. I hope that you will like this video. If you got something from it, that you will comment. Share with me things that you've started realizing in your own life's journey, in your own path, that you're like, you know what? I might not, that doesn't really fit who I am. That's not thriving, right? Or I'm not feeling like that really resonates with who I am anymore. Or maybe ever I learned that there's something here that language is small. It's a small language. And subscribe so that when I do videos, they'll come out and you'll know that they are there for you. All right, I will see you next week. Manifesting Minute will be up tomorrow morning. Tap in. Listen, affirmations It's language. We're talking language here, right? It's expanding our language, but it's also intentional energy put behind it. We are literally taking our life source when we do affirmations and saying, this is what I believe, what I want to come to pass. And it creates kind of this ball that happens, right? It also helps to reprogram negative narratives. So come on, next week I see you. I hope you enjoyed this week. Guys, do something for yourself, please. And you know, I'm not against manicures or pedicures and massages, but do something for yourself. And I'm going to say this too before I leave, because I am doing the self-care solutions course. And I already did a video about kind of essentially what it is and why I've chosen to do it. So I'm not going to recap it here. If you want it, it's on Instagram or Facebook. But I really want to say this. It's hard to care for a self you don't know. You'll be doing all these things and it'll never resonate. You'll never feel full. You'll never feel like you're replenished or relaxed, even though self-care isn't just about relaxation. But you'll never feel like your cup is being filled up because you're filling up a cup that doesn't belong to you. It's not authentic. And so I say that to say this. If you have been practicing self-care and it doesn't resonate, if I go and do these things, I still feel stressed out. If you are still saying, I don't have time for self-care, I ain't got it, I got all these million other things to do, take this course. Invest in yourself. When I set the price, I was like, should I? And I'm like, no, let me stop. Let me stop pretending like we won't spend this money on something else. We've, this almost guilty pleasure of investing in ourselves, right? And I say that authentically because I have that my own issue. I could buy my kids and my husband everything underneath the sun. I used to all the time and never do anything for myself. And so if you find that you're here, take the course. I promise you, you will never be the same. You will look at life differently. I heard that. You're going to stumble across your why, because as we start digging, there's things that come out that you're like, oh, I didn't even know that, right? This course is not about what we have has become the trend of self-care. It's not just about, are you hitting these 5 categories? Cool, then this is much deeper than that. I'm talking about legacy self-care. This is why I call it long-term investments. Because this isn't just the self-care that touches you, but it's the self-care that records itself in your epigenetics so that 5 generations from now, it's still living on the legacy of what you understood about caring for the self that you were gifted with. And so I'm inviting you. Enrollment is open now. I'm doing it 2 different ways. Cohort, where there's a really small cohort, or you can do self-paced. Either way, I'm making myself available to both groups. One gets a little bit more of my time, but this is really about going into 2020, looking at life and designing the life you want to have. Because this world will design it for you. It will tell you to be depressed. It will tell you that there's, anxiety is just, it's on the rise. It will tell you that these, the DSM-5 now is a word that is commonplace among a lot of people that don't even know what the heck they're talking about, or even what the essentials, what the initials stand for, right? But mental health is, this big push. Here's the problem with mental health. If you don't understand who you are, you are trying to solve problems without getting to the root of them. So in other words, you're trying to fan all this smoke and get it out the room, but you ain't touched the fire yet. So it's going to keep coming. And it's why we continue to have cycles. And so I'm done with that tangent, but I'm going to say, If you are ready for something different, join us. Please join us. I promise you, you're going to get to the end of the week like, whoo, all right, come on now, right? So thank you so much for joining me. Again, like, comment, subscribe. I'm so excited to be doing these with you. I hope that there is something in here that helped you, grew you, gave you food for thought, blessed you, all those good things. All right, take care, guys.